What did you do?
I forwarded a video.
The first time I saw my fiancée grinding on a stranger's lap, it wasn't in some smoky club with neon lights and bad decisions. It was on my phone, in my kitchen, next to a sink full of plates I'd washed because she'd said, 2 nights ago, that domestic effort is attractive. Funny how quickly the definition changes. My screen lit up with the kind of notification you don't feel in your hand so much as in your ribs. You were tagged in a video. Tagged. Like I was a cute puppy in a family photo. Like I'd want to be included. I tapped it without thinking, because that's what you do when life throws a hook into your cheek. You jerk your head and make it worse. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The video opened inside an app I barely used. The stream was still live. Grainy, loud, shaking like the cameraman had a heartbeat condition. The caption at the top read something cheerful and stupid. Bachelorette night. And there she was. Lena. My Lena, who'd spent the last month telling me she was overwhelmed, touched out, not in the mood. Who'd sighed when I hugged her from behind as if affection was a bill collector. She was in a white sash, some plastic crown, glitter on her cheekbones, a drink in one hand like it was part of her anatomy. And she was sitting on a man's lap, not a "we're all dancing and it got silly" lap, a deliberate lap, legs straddling, hips moving in slow, practiced circles. Her hands on his shoulders, leaning in close enough that if she'd leaned 1 inch farther, she would have been tasting his cologne. The man's grin was wide, open, hungry. His friends were hooting like seals that had learned one word and used it for everything. Someone shoved a wad of bills at her like this was a transaction and not a betrayal with a playlist. The camera swung around, capturing other women shrieking, phones raised, mouths open. Then it swung back to her, and she threw her head back laughing. Real laughter, not the tired little chuckle she gave me when I tried to lighten the mood at home. The room behind her looked like a rented VIP corner. Dark booth seats, a neon sign that said something ironic about angels, a bartender in the background pretending not to see anything, because that's what adults do when money is involved. I waited for the moment where she'd glance at her phone and realize she'd been tagged. She didn't. Of course she didn't. When you're certain the world is your stage, you forget the audience includes people you've been lying to. My thumb hovered over the volume button. I turned it down anyway. Not because I didn't want to hear it, I just didn't want the sound in my house. The walls didn't deserve it. The Livestream chat scrolled fast. Heart emojis, fire emojis. Somebody typed, "Bride's really getting it LOL." Another comment. Is her man watching? Yeah. Hi, present, breathing. I watched for exactly 12 seconds more than I needed to. That's the part people don't understand about moments like this. You don't stop right away. You think you can watch your brain catch up. You think if you stare long enough, reality will blink first. It doesn't. I backed up the clip a few seconds and watched the tag pop up on screen again. My name, right there in bright text, as if the universe had decided I deserved a receipt. I set my phone down on the counter, face up, like it had done something wrong. Then I stood there, hands on the edge of the sink, looking at the little things in my kitchen that had once felt like a life. The grocery list on the fridge, the dish towel with the stupid lemon pattern she'd bought because it's cute, the wedding invitation samples we'd argued over because she wanted a script font that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never held a pen. My brain did that weird, calm thing it does in emergencies. The part of you that stops being a person and becomes an accountant. Okay, I thought. Let's list the facts. Fact 1. She was cheating. Whether this was the first time or the 100th didn't actually matter. The betrayal wasn't measured in mileage. Fact 2. She didn't care enough to hide it. Fact 3. I was tagged, which meant someone in that room, someone she considered a friend, had either made a mistake or had decided I should see. And there was something else, something small, sharp, and beautiful in the ugliest way. Her grandmother was paying for the wedding. Evelyn Hart was the kind of woman who believed in three things with religious intensity: God, appearances, and consequences. She didn't do modern relationships. She didn't do we found ourselves. She didn't do people make mistakes. She did shame like it was a sacrament. Lena had once told me, laughing, if my grandma ever found out I slept over at a guy's place in college, she'd have funded a convent just to lock me in it. At the time, I'd laughed too, because back then I thought her grandmother was a cartoon. Now I realized Evelyn wasn't a cartoon. She was a lever. I picked up my phone again. The live stream was still going. Lena was now dancing next to the booth, hands in the air, sash crooked, crown tilted. The man she'd been on was filming her like she was a prize he'd won. I didn't screenshot. I didn't record. I didn't need to. Public is public. Tagged is tagged. I copied the link. Then I opened my contacts and searched for Evelyn. Her name came up with a little cross emoji next to it, something she'd insisted Lena add, because it reminds you who you answer to. My thumb hovered for a heartbeat, not because I was unsure, because part of me, the part that still remembered buying a ring and kneeling down and thinking I was building something, wanted to call Lena first, wanted to give her the courtesy of a conversation. Then I watched her lean into another stranger, laughing, eyes bright, and I realized something simple. Courtesy is for people who don't treat you like a joke in a room full of witnesses. I pasted the link. No paragraphs, no drama, no speech, just one line. I think you should see what the wedding money is paying for. I hit send. And for the first time that night, I smiled. Not because it felt good, because it felt final. The wedding didn't end loudly. It didn't explode or collapse in some cinematic spiral of screaming phone calls and sobbing apologies. It just stopped, like a heart monitor going flat when the room is too quiet to pretend otherwise. I knew it before Lena came home. I knew it because my phone started ringing from numbers I hadn't saved, because emails came in with subject lines that suddenly felt embarrassed to exist. Regarding your upcoming event. Change in payment status. Please advise ASAP. I didn't answer any of them. When Lena walked through the door an hour later, she didn't look drunk. She didn't look guilty either. She looked confused, like someone who had stepped onto what they thought was solid ground and found air instead. Hey, she said carefully, setting her purse down. Why aren't you answering your phone? I stayed on the couch, TV off, hands folded, calm, the kind of calm that scares people when they don't know why it's there. Busy, I said. She laughed once, short and forced. Doing what? Practicing your monk impression? She waited for a smile, a jab, a comment, something to push against. I gave her nothing. That's when her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Her face changed. Not panic yet, more like confusion turning sour. Then it buzzed again, and again. She scrolled, faster now. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was about to ask a question, but didn't trust the answer. What did you do? She asked. Interesting choice of words. Not what happened. Not why is my grandmother calling me 12 times. What did you do? I stood up then, not aggressively, just decisively, like I was done sitting in one version of the room and wanted to see it from another angle. I forwarded a video, I said. Her eyes flicked up to mine, just for a second, then away. What video? I shrugged. The one I was tagged in. That did it. Her skin went pale in a way makeup can't fix. Her hand tightened around her phone so hard I thought she might crack the screen. You watched that? She snapped. It was a joke. It was a party. You're being dramatic. Dramatic would have been calling you, I said, or showing up, or throwing something. She stared at me like I'd just spoken in another language. Instead, I'd done something much worse. I'd involved someone who didn't tolerate spin. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered. "Grandma." I didn't hear Evelyn's voice, but I didn't need to. I saw it reflected in Lena's face as the color drained and her shoulders stiffened, like she was being measured for a coffin. "No, that wasn't. I didn't. It's not like—" She glanced at me, eyes wide now, angry, afraid. "Yes, he's here," she said sharply. "No, I don't think—" She stopped, swallowed. "I understand," she said quietly. The call ended. For a long moment, Lena just stood there. Then she dropped onto the chair across from me like gravity had suddenly remembered her. "She froze the account," she said. "She froze everything." I nodded. "That sounds like her." "You had no right," she hissed. "You went behind my back." I tilted my head. "You went in front of mine. On camera." She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "You ruined this," she said. "You ruined us." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "You live-streamed it." Silence stretched. Thick, uncomfortable. Then, quietly, almost to herself, she said, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." That was the moment something inside me clicked into place. It never is. She didn't sleep that night. She paced, made calls in the bathroom, cried without tears, texted furiously. At some point around 3 a.m, she sat on the edge of the bed and said, "I need space." I didn't argue. I slept better than I had in weeks. By morning, the narrative had started forming around her. That's how people like Lena survive things. They build stories quickly, before reality does it for them. She said her friends had taken things too far. She said alcohol had been involved. She said her grandmother was old-fashioned and overreacting. She didn't say sorry. She didn't ask how I felt. She asked if I could talk to Evelyn. Smooth it over. Explain. I told her I didn't think Evelyn would appreciate a man explaining morality to her. That was when Lena packed a bag and left. She said she was going to stay with a friend. She didn't say which one. I knew, because men like the one in that video don't disappear after the party ends. They linger. They believe chaos is temporary and consequences are for other people. I found him the next day, not by stalking, not by spying, by doing something radical. I paid attention. The guy wasn't subtle. Same gym every morning, same black SUV with tinted windows he clearly thought made him mysterious instead of compensating. Same corner parking spot like he owned it. I watched him through the glass wall of the gym as he laughed with his buddies, shirt off, muscles flexing for an audience that had already decided he mattered. He looked exactly like the kind of man who believes winning a woman means he's beaten another man. I waited until he came out. He walked toward his car, keys dangling from one finger, confidence loose and careless. I stepped into his path. He slowed, looked me up and down, smirked. "Can I help you, man?" he said. I smiled back, friendly, polite. "Oh, I don't need help," I said. "I just wanted to see if you looked as brave in daylight." His smile faltered. Just a crack. "Do I know you?" I leaned in slightly, not threatening, not loud, close enough that he could smell my soap. "You sat very comfortably on my fiancée last night," I said. I figured I should introduce myself. His eyes flicked toward the gym, toward his car, toward escape routes, then back to me. "Hey, whatever she told you—" "I didn't ask," I said. I stepped aside, letting him reach his car. As he opened the door, I added, almost casually, "By the way, your driveway camera? Angle's bad. Leaves a blind spot by the gate." He froze. Didn't turn around. Didn't speak. I walked past him, heart steady, steps unhurried. Behind me, I heard his car door slam. Harder than necessary. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be quick, and that he was going to make it worse for himself. The funny thing about fear is that it makes people sloppy. The guy from the gym, Evan, as I'd learned without asking, started changing his routines almost immediately. Different parking spots, different hours. hoodie pulled low even when it made no sense. He checked reflections in storefront windows, tapped his brakes at green lights just long enough to see if anyone would roll through behind him. I didn't follow him. I didn't need to. When someone knows you could be anywhere, you don't have to be anywhere at all. Lena texted me that afternoon. Can we talk? I didn't respond. She sent another. He says you scared him, that you threatened him. I smiled at the phone. The story was already mutating. That was faster than I expected. I typed back one line. Ask him what I said. Then I put the phone face down and went back to work. That evening, I took a drive. Not to Evan's place, yet. Just through the parts of the city people assume are anonymous. The kind of neighborhoods where townhouses stack like teeth and everyone pretends privacy exists because the gates have codes. I parked across the street from Evan's complex, legally, on a public curb, and sat with the engine off. Lights flicked on one by one as dusk settled. Dogs barked. A garage door whined. Normal life. The illusion people buy when they think money equals insulation. I watched Evan's unit from a distance. Third floor, corner, big windows, too many windows. He came home just after 9. I didn't move. I didn't get out. I didn't approach. I just waited until his lights went off. Then I drove away. The next morning, Evan woke up to his gate wide open. Not broken, not forced, just open. The security desk had a record of a delivery truck that had tailgated in before midnight. Happens all the time. Human error. No villain. His Ring camera caught nothing useful. The blind spot I'd mentioned did exactly what blind spots do. Nothing was missing. Nothing was damaged. Except his sleep. By noon, my phone buzzed again. Lena. He thinks you were at his place, I replied, while standing in line for coffee. Was I? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. This isn't funny. You're acting crazy. That one actually made me laugh. I paid, took my cup, and answered, Crazy people explain themselves. That night, Lena showed up at the house unannounced. She let herself in like she still belonged there, dropped her bag, looked around like she was checking for changes, like the furniture might have chosen sides. You can't do this, she said. You're making things worse. For who? I asked. For everyone. I leaned against the counter and watched her unravel. She looked tired now, real tired, the kind of tired makeup can't negotiate with. You humiliated me, she said. You dragged my grandmother into something private. I raised an eyebrow. Private implies exclusive. She flinched. You don't understand, she said, lowering her voice. Evan has a temper. He doesn't like feeling cornered. Neither do I said. That's why I build exits. She stepped closer. Too close. Tried for softness. Tried for familiar. I made a mistake, she said. It didn't mean anything. That's what scares me, I said calmly. If it meant something, at least it would have weight. Her hand came up. She slapped me, not hard, not dramatic. More reflex than rage. The sound echoed anyway. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't touch my cheek. She stared at me, horrified now, like she'd expected anger to appear and didn't know what to do with absence. I'm done talking, I said. She left crying. I slept fine. The following weekend, Evan lost his composure in public. It happened at a rooftop bar downtown, the kind of place where drinks cost more than honesty. I was invited by a co-worker. Evan was there because men like him are always there. I didn't approach him, didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge his existence, which, as it turns out, was unbearable. He cornered me near the restrooms, chest puffed, voice low and tight. You think you're clever, he said. Showing up places, messing with my head. I took a sip of my drink. I was invited. You opened my gate. I don't own a gate, I said. You threatened me. I introduced myself. He shoved me, not hard enough to hurt, hard enough to draw attention. I stumbled back half a step and smiled. Security moved fast. People stared. Phones came out. Evan tried to explain, words tripping over each other, his story already rotting. As they escorted him out, he locked eyes with me. I leaned in just enough to be heard. "Check your car." I didn't stay to watch. The next morning, Evan found his SUV untouched, except for the mirrors, both folded inward. Perfectly, like someone had tucked them in. That's when Lena called, sobbing. "He's losing everything," she said. "His partner pulled funding. His wife kicked him out. Please, just stop." I listened. Then I said, "You chose chaos. I'm just letting it finish." She hung up on me. I stepped outside, breathing in the cool air, and felt something shift. Not satisfaction, momentum. Because Evan hadn't realized the worst part yet. He thought this was about him. It wasn't. And when he finally understood whose life was actually being dismantled, it was going to happen fast. Too fast to stop. The thing Evan never understood, right up until it mattered, was that his panic had made him visible. Men like him survive on posture, confidence, the assumption that everyone else will look away first. Once that cracks, the rest goes quickly. Investors don't like noise. Partners don't like questions. Wives don't like surprises that come with screenshots. By Monday, his name was circulating in places he couldn't control. Not accusations, not crimes, just patterns, whispers, incomplete sentences that invited curiosity instead of denial. I didn't start any of it. I just didn't stop it. The charity gala was his idea of damage control. Black tie, glass walls, a room full of people who equated donations with absolution. He showed up in a tailored suit and a smile that looked stapled on, arm linked with Lena like proof of relevance. I arrived separately. Different entrance, different timing. Same room. From across the floor, I watched him scan the crowd, his eyes snagging on me like a hook in fabric. His jaw tightened. His grip on Lena's arm became possessive in a way she didn't notice because she was too busy pretending this was still a choice. I drifted through the room the way men with nothing to prove do, talked to donors, shook hands, laughed when appropriate, let the space work on him. He broke first. He approached fast, shoulders squared, smile gone. Lena tried to stop him. He brushed her off. "This ends tonight," he hissed, stopping inches from me. "You hear me?" I glanced at the crowd. Cameras everywhere. Security close. Perfect. "Ends how?" I asked mildly. "You're done showing up," he said. "Done spreading lies. Done threatening me." I leaned in, just enough to make him uncomfortable. "I've never threatened you. I've never lied about you, and I've never followed you." He swallowed. "Then why is everything falling apart?" I smiled, small and polite. "Because you built it on attention. Attention shifts." His hand shot out and grabbed my jacket. Gasps. A few phones rose instantly. I reacted once, not a punch, not a swing. I twisted his wrist down and stepped into his space, forcing him to release me. Controlled, clean. Enough to make the point. Security was on us immediately. Evan started talking too fast, explaining, pointing. His voice cracked on the third sentence. They escorted him out. Lena didn't follow. She stood there, frozen, finally understanding what she'd attached herself to. I left 5 minutes later. That night, Evan's wife changed the locks. That wasn't my doing either. That was timing. By morning, Lena was at my door again. No makeup, no confidence, just fear and desperation wrapped in a coat she'd forgotten at my place weeks ago. "You're enjoying this," she said, eyes red. "Aren't you?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm finishing it." "You're destroying him." "He volunteered," I said. "So did you." She stepped forward, slapped me again, harder this time. Real anger, real pain. I didn't react. That hurt her more than anything else I'd done. "I don't recognize you," she whispered. "That's because you never looked," I said. She left without another word. I found Evan the next evening, not by tracking him, by answering a call, unknown number. "Where are you?" his voice demanded, brittle and shaking. "At home," I said. "Meet me," he snapped. "Now. This ends face to face." I gave him an address, neutral ground, parking structure, cameras everywhere. When he arrived, he looked smaller, jacket wrinkled, eyes darting. The posture was gone. "You ruined my life," he said. I stepped close enough that he could hear me breathe. "No," I said quietly. "You handed me leverage and begged me to use it." He lunged. I sidestepped, grabbed his collar, pinned him briefly against the concrete wall, just enough to make him understand how fragile he really was. I leaned in. "This is the last time you speak to me," I said. "The last time you touch me. The last time you pretend you won something." I released him. He slid down the wall, breathing hard. As I walked away, I added, "Check your phone." I didn't wait to see his reaction, because at that exact moment, Lena's grandmother was opening a folder she'd been saving, and when Evelyn Hart finished reading, there would be nothing left to misunderstand. The story wasn't over yet, but it was about to end, all at once. Evelyn Hart didn't call. She never did when something mattered. She sent an email. No subject line, no greeting. Just an attachment and one sentence in the body. "I've canceled what needed canceling." I opened the attachment in my kitchen, standing in the same spot where I'd first watched the live stream. Funny how places remember things even when people pretend they don't. The file wasn't dramatic. No threats, no moral lectures. It was administrative. Bank correspondence, vendor notices, trust documentation. A clean, polite paper trail showing that wedding funds had been withdrawn, redirected, and locked behind requirements Lena could never meet. Addendums citing conduct inconsistent with values. Clauses I hadn't known existed, because people like Evelyn always read the fine print. At the bottom was a final note, typed, not signed. "Tell Lena I wish her well, from a distance." I forwarded the email to Lena. Nothing else. Her response came minutes later, then 10 more messages stacked on top of it, missed calls, voice notes I didn't open, words like "please" and "explain," and "we can fix this" thrown around like they still meant something. I turned my phone off. Evan, meanwhile, was unraveling publicly. His business partner announced a strategic separation. Investors quietly backed away. His wife filed for divorce that afternoon, no statement, no drama, just a filing timestamp that told anyone paying attention exactly when loyalty had expired. He showed up at my house after dark. Not pounding, not screaming, just standing on the porch like a man who'd finally run out of places to go. I opened the door and didn't invite him in. "You win," he said hoarsely. I considered correcting him, decided against it. "This isn't a negotiation," I said. "I didn't know she was engaged," he lied. I looked at him until the lie collapsed under its own weight. "You knew," I said. "You just didn't care." He stepped closer. Too close. "I lost everything," he said. "My job, my house, my family." I shrugged. "You should have protected them." His hand twitched. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not because I wanted violence, but because I needed him to understand how easily it could happen, and how merciful I was being by not letting it. He grabbed my collar. I moved faster, one step forward, elbow into his chest, not hard enough to injure, just enough to steal his breath. A sharp slap across his face, open hand, loud, echoing. The sound mattered more than the force. He stumbled back, shocked, one hand flying to his cheek like he couldn't believe he'd been touched by someone he'd decided was beneath him. I leaned in. "This," I said quietly, "is the most physical this ever gets." His eyes were wild now, wet, afraid. "You don't get to play the victim," I continued. "You don't get closure, and you don't get revenge fantasies where I'm the villain. You get consequences." I stepped back and closed the door. I didn't watch him leave. The last message came from Lena an hour later, just one line. I don't know who you are anymore. I typed my reply carefully, slowly, making sure every word fit. You never did. I hit send. Then I turned my phone off again, sat down at the kitchen table, and listened to the house settle around me, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, the ordinary sounds of a life no longer contaminated by performance. Outside, somewhere down the street, a car door slammed. That was it. No speeches, no forgiveness, no rebuilding montage, just silence, and the certainty that nothing was coming back. The sound outside wasn't Evan's car, it was Lena's. I knew it before I saw her because she always parked crooked when she was emotional, nose of the car too far over the line, like rules were optional when feelings were involved. I didn't turn the porch light on. I opened the door before she could knock. She looked smaller than I remembered. No makeup. Hair pulled back like she'd given up trying to be seen and was now just trying to survive. Her hands were shaking, keys still clenched in her fist like a weapon she didn't know how to use. He's gone, she said immediately. Evan, he packed what he could and left the city. I waited. My grandmother cut me off, she continued, voice cracking. Completely. She won't take my calls. She told my parents everything. Still waiting. There's nothing left, she whispered. No wedding, no money, no place to stay. She finally looked up at me then, eyes wet, desperate, searching for something familiar, something soft. This went too far, she said. You made your point. I stepped aside and let her come in. Relief flickered across her face for half a second. That was the last good feeling she'd get from me. I walked to the kitchen table and picked up the folder I'd left there on purpose. Neat, organized, tabs labeled. The way I do things when I want them understood. What's that? She asked. Your exit, I said. I slid the folder toward her. Inside, copies of vendor cancellations, lease termination paperwork, a timeline of everything she'd said and done. Nothing secret, nothing illegal. Just facts, dates, public links, messages she'd sent that she assumed would evaporate with time. At the bottom was a printed still from the live stream, her on that man's lap, smiling, tagged. She stared at it like it might move if she watched long enough. You planned this, she said. I shook my head. I allowed it. She stood abruptly and slapped me again, hard. This time I caught her wrist. Not violently, not dramatically. Just firm enough that she froze, eyes wide, realizing for the first time how completely the balance had shifted. I leaned in close. You don't get to hit me anymore, I said quietly. You don't get to touch me. You don't get to rewrite this into something where you're confused and I'm cruel. I released her. She backed away like I'd burned her. You're not the man I fell in love with, she said, crying openly now. You broke him. The silence between us stretched until it hurt. Then she whispered, What do you want? I looked at her for a long moment. Really looked. At the woman who had smiled for strangers and lied to my face and assumed forgiveness was a renewable resource. I want you gone, I said. Tonight. She didn't argue. She grabbed her bag, stumbling slightly as she went, and stopped at the door like she was waiting for something. A word. A look. A crack. I gave her nothing. When the door closed behind her, I locked it. Not because I was afraid she'd come back, because I was done. I walked back into the kitchen, picked up my phone, and turned it on one last time. No new messages, no missed calls, just quiet. I deleted the live stream link from my history, not out of mercy, out of boredom. Then I turned the phone off, placed it face down on the table, and stood there in the middle of the room where everything had started. The house felt lighter, empty in the good way. And that was where it ended.